Hello everyone, welcome to my channel.
Hello everyone and welcome you all to our imaginary interview session. So, as per the note, today, I will not be having questions by any audience. Instead, for today's session, we will be covering those questions with which our today's guest is already questioned before in his interviews. So, without any delay, let me introduce him. He is a doyen of Indian English poetry and his name is Jayanta Mahapatra, sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Sakshi, for such a warm welcome. I am pleased to attend today's session.
So, let's start our session. But, before that, guys, can we have a round of applause for him? Yeah, that's what we were waiting for. So, today, we will be having 10 questions, which are already asked before, to him, in his various interviews. I have handpicked 10 of them, with the answers. Generally, we people don't really read those interviews, or even if we do, it is specific person related. So, I have brought all this in a creative way, so that people at least start develop interest for poets and learn about their life.
That's really commendable, Sakshi.
Thank you, sir. So, the first question is, in your English poems, the sentences are intricately crafted. But the Odia poems are simple. Also, sometimes, you have paired poems in both languages that are not translations of each other, but seem related to the same experience.
I don't know Odia very well. Writing in both English and Odia has been a complementary exercise for me. I have explored my innermost thoughts in English, which I have not been able to do in Odia, at least not deliberately. I want to be understood more generally by everyone when I write in Odia. Many years after I began writing in English, I started composing poems in my own tongue, because I wanted to be closer to my brothers, to my own people, to my neighbors. For example, the Odia poem, Amba Gacha, the Mango Tree, from the collection Bayar Raja has come directly from flesh and blood, it is more intimate. It has come straight from the Jayanta Mahapatra who was there with his father, the father and son who planted the tree, and that intimacy is not there in the English poem. Collaboration, from Lie of Dawns, which is an altogether different poem, although somehow springing from the same experience. Influences of poems I have read in English have contributed significantly to collaboration, whereas Amba Gacha has come out of my own mind and experience.
Very well answered, sir. Now, the second question is, apart from the Sahitya Akademi publication, Indian literature, there is no credible, periodic print magazine for creative writing in English in the country. But simultaneously, there has been an explosion of English language media. What do you think of this phenomenon?
I have not been able to find out why there have not been good standard magazines, journals in English which would publish creative work. We write more and more in English, and, at the same time, are not able to sustain a print magazine in the language for creative literature. English language newspapers should devote a page a month, at least, for creative writing.
Very well said, sir. I totally agree with your point. Now, the third question is, you had once said in an interview, I fell in love with English. I played with words, turning them over and over again until they were heavy with meaning. From physics to poetry, tell us a little about your love for words. And finally, a steaming hot cup of tea or a delicious mug of frothy coffee. What is your favorite writing companion?
I don't think it was an impulsive outbreak when I said that I loved to play with words. My love for language goes back to my school days, when I would find a quiet corner with a book to escape the ragging which shamed me. And I've been with books ever since. Fascinated by the English language, I did experiment with words whenever I felt like it. But physics was a subject I liked and did well in, both in school and university, and my first-class master's degree got me a lectureship. However, in my spare time, I spent reading, mostly fiction. And I loved to wallow in the words. This meant I was also learning at the same time. And physics never interfered with my love for literature. When I started writing poetry, and that too at a late age, I felt my English would be the right medium to express my emotions, and wasn't wrong. Higher physics and poetry said the same thing. The chaos in the universe and the ambiguity, the uncertainty in life. Physics was the poetry of the intellect, and poetry the science of human emotions. And there could be no contradiction between them. I couldn't give up writing poetry. My poems began appearing in leading literary periodicals abroad. And I felt good. Today, I still write. I don't have any specific times. I don't need tea or coffee. All I want is the sunlight to come through my window and the tremble of the wind in the trees beyond.
That's so beautiful thought, sir. Now, moving on to the fourth question. You are a pioneer of a particular tradition of Indian English poetry that is not over-intellectualized and tries to directly deal and cope with the effects. Who among the younger generation of poets has a similar approach, do you think?
Many poets from the Northeast write in this fashion. My friends Kinfam Singh Nong Kinri, Robin S. Nangam and Nabanita Kanningo, all of them write really well. And they are talking about their place. Poetry can only emerge from the place you live in. I have had several chances to go and lead a life abroad. I do not know why, but I couldn't do so. I do not know what it is about the place, but I really love it here in Cuttack. And I continue to live here, that's all.
That's so true, sir. Now, the fifth question is, in Pahini Rati, we get lyrical descriptions of the dark in small town Orissa. How do you relate to darkness?
Darkness is a part of our world, a part of our life. When I was a child, our house was located at the edge of the neighborhood. It was surrounded by huge deodar trees. We had no electricity then. And the clamor of fruit bats and the wind howling through the leaves of the deodars, these brought unknown fears to me. I still remember the shadows from the kerosene lamps that I used in my little room to study by. All this instilled in me a certain fear that I took a long time to overcome. When I started writing poems, the Bombay poets had a big hold on Indian poetry in English. They had created their own lingo. The twist of language, the inherent mystery that emerges in a poem to provide different meanings to readers, it was totally absent in that tradition. But mystery has always fascinated me.
Great answer, sir. Now, moving to the sixth question. Your poetry is suffused with rain, both as a climatic event, but also as metaphor. Increasingly, we live in times when rain is decreasing in intensity. How do you relate to this shift?
Rain is tied to my inner longings. The inner longing that is always there and which my years of writing poetry have not been able to subdue or take care of. Rain is a metaphor, a correlation, for the life that I lead inside.
Beautifully answered, sir. Now the seventh question is, descriptions of small town Orissa, say, Cuttack or Sambhalpur, in your poems as well as in your dear autobiography Pahini Rati, The Night Is Yet to End, Vijayani Publications, 2013, are populated with trees, creepers, birds and other aspects of nature. What has been your relationship with urban nature?
Look at this house. In its yard, I have planted bamboos. Many of the older mango and pear trees are now gone, felled by successive cyclones, but many still stand and their leaves often enter this house and make a mess. When it rains, I open my doors and windows. I want the thunder and the lightning to come in. I also want the dust to come in. I do not mind the dust of Cuttack. I do not mind the way of life of Cuttack. I feel really bad when I see everything changing so fast. All the trees in the city are gone. It has a couple of rivers on its two sides. 60 to 70 years ago, you had water just beside the banks. Now the rivers have very little water. And that itself brings a pang to my heart. I can't live like this. It is as if I am now living in a totally different environment.
This itself shows how much you love nature, sir. Now, moving on to the eighth question. Your poetic voice is an ambiguous one. In several of your poems, the authorial voice and the narrative voice are not always in consonance. It is not a distraction though, in fact, it produces a startling intimacy. How is this achieved?
I would not be able to talk about what you have pointed out. You see, I have always tended to go back to those images which have built my life. And these have always come from the place I have lived in. When I was a boy, a child of 5 or 6, my father had taken me to Puri, and I still remember being at Narendra Tank. There were very old turtles there with people shouting, Ekid, Ekid, this side, this side. These images have made my life. It is the land that has made me, and in turn shaped my poetry. So, yes, I am intimate with the land. I could not have lived elsewhere, nor could I have written poetry anywhere else.
Well said, sir. Now, moving to the ninth question. The Sahitya Akademi Fellowship is perhaps the highest literary honor ever bestowed upon an English poet in India.
When a poet, a writer, keeps doing his work seriously, awards will come his way. I have thought of awards as little flowers that fade the next morning. But what is strange is that when I was given the Sahitya Akademi Award almost 40 years ago, in 1981, I was the first Indian English poet to be so awarded. I am now also the first poet writing in English to become a Fellow of the Sahitya Akademi.
That's a very beautiful thought, sir. Now, moving on to the 10th and the last question of the day. You have been a prolific translator of Odia to English. Of your translations, which do you like the most?
I liked translating parts of Rudra Sudanidhi, a 15th century Odia text in prose, composed by Narayana Abhaduta Swami. I really love that text. The very fact that a mendicant, a sadhu, would do this kind of writing is amazing. It is a very difficult text and I thought it was beyond me. I did not find anybody who could explain things to me, so I could not complete the translation.
Thank you so much, sir, for all the beautiful answers. It was great pleasure having you in our session.
Thank you everyone.